Aloha, it's Jessica Baker with Hawaii Life Real Estate Brokers here for your Maui market update on November 26, 2019. This week I want to share with you a couple tips for buyers and sellers during an escrow transaction to help make that sale process move as smoothly as possible. So tip number one for both buyers and sellers, if you're planning any kind of vacation during the time from when you're submitting an offer on a property to when that sale will close, let your agent know, especially if you're going out of the country or if your vacation is going to fall around any sort of major holiday, because the escrow will need to know that too to coordinate around the Bureau of Conveyance's schedule and also make sure that they can get your final closing paperwork to you and back in time to meet any deadline. With the end of the year coming up, this is particularly important. Tip number two, this one is for buyers. So if we're submitting an offer on a property and you are paying cash for it or putting down a significant down payment, it's a part of the purchase contract, not only to stipulate what kind of proof of funds you'll be submitting, but the timeline for when you'll be providing that proof to the seller. So if your agent asks you a bunch of questions or just one question, okay, where is the money coming from? Is it in a stock account? Is it contingent on the sale of another property? Is it sitting in a bank account? How do you want to show us that that money is available and liquid and that you can perform? And are you able to produce that? Sometimes that timeline gets a little tricky when you're here on Maui vacationing, but all your account statements are back at home. So we just want to make sure that there's enough time to allow in the contract for you as the buyer to get that proof of funds and then send it over to the seller without anything falling off the timeline. Another tip, this one is just for sellers, and I've said this so many times before, sellers disclose what you know about the property. Don't try to sweep anything under the rug. It's always better to over disclose and write detailed information from the very beginning rather than leaving a lot up to guesswork on the buyer's behalf. The last tip is for both buyers and sellers. Once we get an accepted offer, once we're in escrow is going to send you both a copy of paperwork to fill out. That's how they're going to want to know how you want to hold title. That's the most important part of it. And fill out that paperwork right away. That's super important, because if we're trucking along, then all of a sudden both buyer and seller decide that they want to close early, then it's up to escrow to decide, or not decide, but be able to get the deed out for signature. And in order to do that, they need that information. This is especially important if a seller, you hold title to a property in an entity like an LLC or a trust, and buyer, if you're going to purchase with one of those entities. Escrow will not only need the name of it, but they'll need to review articles of incorporation and trust documents. So please allow time for that, and the best thing that you can do is filling out that opening paperwork in a timely manner. So those are a couple of tips to help make an escrow transaction as smooth as possible. And now here is this week's Best Buy. This week's Best Buy is one of my most favorite properties I've ever seen here on Maui. It's 1875 and 1879 Olinda Road, two separate parcels that comprise a 4¼ acre piece of majestically manicured land. On one parcel is a 2,700 square foot house. When the remodeling was done in the house a couple years ago, they used all low toxicity materials and also put in a whole house HVAC system with its own air filtration. So there's 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, a library, and a pool room. Then on the other parcel are 2 separate, totally private 500 square foot studio cottages. So you can meander through this gorgeous landscaping that's right along the edge of the gulch. I just can't get enough of it. So the reason that this property is this week's Best Buy is because they just did a massive price reduction from $2.9 million down to $2.4 million, $2.39 actually. It's definitely this week's Best Buy. So that's it. Thank you so much for joining me today, Jessica Baker with Hawaii Life, for another Maui market update. Wishing you and your families a very happy Thanksgiving, and we'll see you next week. Aloha for now.